Hi there, my name is Max Klauscher and I'm going to be teaching a lesson on the basics of saxophone. This is like a first time saxophone lesson geared towards first graders. So in my dialogue I will be pretending that I'm giving a lesson to a fourth grader. So let's begin. The very first thing to learn when playing the saxophone is how to put it together, of course. And so let's first talk about the parts of the saxophone. The most important one that you probably didn't think was that important is the neck strap, which looks like this. You just hang it around your neck, and then the saxophone hangs from it. So I'm gonna put mine where I like it. That'll depend on person to person, so you'll probably find that out as we put the saxophone on. So don't worry about that just yet. So make sure you put that on first, because that's vital to make sure you don't drop your saxophone whenever you're holding it. Now the next piece that I'm going to talk about is the mouthpiece. It should look something kind of like this. You notice that, using my fist as an example, it has a flat side and a rounder side. So the flat side faces down, and when it goes into your mouth it'll be like that. You also notice that there's this ring thing. It's hard to see. It's called a ligature. And so what that does is it acts like a ring, and it holds a reed onto your mouthpiece. It goes around. I can't fit it around my fist, but that's how a ligature works in conjunction with a mouthpiece. And so we'll put that on the next part of the saxophone, which looks like this. It's called a neck. And so, as I said before, the flat side of the mouthpiece goes down. And the way you can tell with the neck is this part faces down, this part faces down, and it matches with the flat side of the mouthpiece. So just go ahead and push it on there. If it's a little tough, you might need some cork grease, which I have. I don't need it right now, so I'm not going to demonstrate that. So this is your very first step towards assembling your saxophone. Next, you grab the body of the saxophone, the real deal where the magic happens, and then you attach the neck to the rest of the saxophone. That could also potentially need some cork grease if it's sticky. Mine's again fine. And then you tighten it with the screw here so that it doesn't come loose. And then the very first thing you do is you attach your neck strap to your saxophone. There's a nice little ring right here on the body where your neck strap goes. And that way I can hold it with just one hand, and I can even let it rest kind of against my legs, and I know I'm not gonna drop it. So from here, we're still missing one little part of the saxophone, and that's called the reed. So let me grab it. The reed is just a little wooden sliver type thing. It looks like this. And that's how you make sound on the saxophone. That will get, you have a flat, it's hard to tell, but you have a flat side of the reed with some writing on it, and then this part is actually, it's got this nice little curve. And so you take the flat side of the reed against the flat side of the mouthpiece, kind of like that. And it goes underneath the ligature. So I will put on mine. Here is how to put on a reed. You take the ligature off of the mouthpiece, and you put the reed on the flat side of the mouthpiece. And now you take your ligature and you slide it over top of both of them to secure the reed to the mouthpiece. If you look closely at my reed, very hard to tell, but it's right at the edge of the mouthpiece. So it should look a lot like that. If you have it down too far and you can see too much mouthpiece, it's going to be really hard to play. And if you have it up so far that it's sticking over top of the mouthpiece, then it's going to be really, really hard to make a sound even. So with our fully assembled saxophone, let me just reattach my neck strap again. Let's go ahead and try to make our very first sound on the saxophone. But first, we gotta learn how to properly hold the saxophone. So if you noticed, you have keys here, and you have keys here. The ones above are for your left hand, the ones below are for your right hand. Let's start with the right hand just because it's a little easier. You have this nice little hook for your thumb, so you can get some sort of way to hold on to it, and then you only have these 3 keys right there. So that's where your first 3 fingers go. And then these 2 are also keys, and that's for your pinky. Your pinky has to play both of them, but it's not as difficult as it might sound. Now your left hand is a little bit more confusing. First, your thumb is gonna go on this circular part. Most saxophones will have a black plastic circle. Mine doesn't, but just be prepared for any sort. It's usually a circle, and it'll have a key kind of like this. That's called the octave key. So that's where you put your thumb, and you have to use that key on occasion. And then your other fingers, you'll notice that there are a lot more keys on the left hand than on the right hand. So the way you decide which ones do you use, you skip this first one. Sometimes it'll be a pearl like these, other times it looks like mine. You skip that one for your first finger, and then you skip this little key with your second finger, and then your third finger goes on the last pearl, and then your pinky controls these other keys as well. So again, you skip the first one, skip the second one, the little guy, and then from then on, you just put your fingers where they lie. And so that's the hand position for the saxophone. For actually holding it and playing it, there are 2 different ways you could do it. You can have it straight in front of you, between your legs, or you could have it off to the side. A lot of students, because they're smaller, will like to have it off to the side, so I'll teach that method. It just hangs down and rests on your right leg. The only thing is that there are a couple common problems that students will have, and I'll demonstrate them. One is whenever you have it up in playing position, your head is tilted to the side a lot. Like this. If you could see, my neck is just not completely straight. You want it to be straight up so that your airway is fully supported. And the easy fix to that is you simply take the mouthpiece and you rotate it. I go from here, and now my head is straight up and down. No bend in my neck, nice and comfortable playing position. The other problem that students will have is they will have their neck straps set too low. So if I have my neck strap down here, my sax doesn't reach my face. So the only thing that I can do is I can bend down to try and play it. Look at what my neck does when I'm doing this. This bend is very, very unhealthy. The sax is already hard on your neck because you're putting so much weight on it, so you want to do yourself as many favors as possible and keep yourself straight up and down. So students will often need to raise their neck straps up. Especially smaller students will need to raise theirs up quite a bit. Mine's about halfway, but other students, younger students will be much, much further than that. So now, the saxophone comes right to my mouth. I'm not holding it up with any weight at all. It's all resting on the neck strap, and it just comes right into my mouth. It's much more comfortable like that. It's still a little bit low, and you're not going to advance particularly far without holding it in the proper fashion. Now, in order to actually produce a sound, you need to learn about the embouchure just a little bit. So, whenever you put the mouthpiece and the reed in your mouth, you need to curl your bottom lip over your teeth. So, because if otherwise you would put your teeth against the reed, and that would cause the vibrations to not function properly, and it would sound very, very horrible. I'm not going to demonstrate that. So, but your top lip does not curl over your top teeth. You do put your top teeth on top of your mouthpiece. Your bottom teeth, you don't. So, a sax embouchure should look something like this. I'm not doing anything super fancy with my facial muscles. It's relatively relaxed. The only thing is my corners of my mouth here are engaged, they're a little bit tight. So it's almost like a half smile. Like I'm not full on beaming so that my cheeks come up like this, but I am just keeping it tight. And that helps you to keep a seal around the mouthpiece and the reed so that no air comes out. And with that, if I could just touch on the point again, make sure your reed is in a proper playing position or else you won't get a good sound. It again should come right about to here on the mouthpiece, if this is the reed. So let's go ahead and play our first note on the saxophone. It'll be a B, and that uses just the first finger on your left hand. You still want your thumbs on their respective positions, and on the hook, it's hard to demonstrate, but just the first key. Remember, you skipped the very first key. It's the first one where your finger is actually going to rest on. So let's go ahead and press that. Set our posture right with a nice straight back, nice straight neck. Let's go ahead and set our embouchure, and let's go ahead and play our first B. So your goal is to get it to sound as much like that as possible. Often if your sound is really honky, it sounds just loud and overbearing, it's potentially your reed is too far down on your mouthpiece. To fix that, you push it up. And if it's too hard to make a sound, it's a possibility that your reed is too high on your mouthpiece. So you must lower it to get to that sweet spot. Otherwise, it's just an air thing. Just take a nice deep breath. You don't want to shout through your horn. You want to just try and sing, you know? So think of your air stream like that. Let's go ahead and play another B. Before we learn our second note, I want to introduce tonguing, because that's how, if you listen to my sound, you notice that I'm not using any tongue at all. It sounds kind of like hum, and so you want it to sound more to, because that way the sound has a definite start. And that's the goal of tonguing, and it's literally you just touch the tip of your tongue to the reed. So this is the reed, and this is my tongue. You just touch it as you start the air, just to. So in no way do you want to be overly aggressive with your tongue, because that way you can get a really big explosion type sound, and you don't want that, but you do want to get a nice definite beginning to the sound. So let's go ahead and try and tongue 3 Bs in a row. So just go ahead and play with me. Good. So let's go ahead and learn our second note, just because it's going to be very similar to B. It'll be an A. And since we're going down in notes, we're just going to be adding fingers down the saxophone. So B was just this first one. A, you take that fingering and then you add your second finger, remembering that you skip the very first key and the little key. So it's just these 2 fingerings to play A. So let's go ahead and tongue a B and then tongue an A. Good. So let's do that one more time, and then we'll move on to learn the third note, G. Good. Now, G, as I said before, we're just adding fingers going down the saxophone. So you take your A fingering, using these 2 fingers, and then you just add the third one to get to G. So going from B to G, you go B, A, G. So let's go ahead and try to tongue those 3 notes. Good. All right, and that is the first 3 notes on the saxophone. Thank you very much.